when it comes down to it, people make your destination. And that's what's really helped Detroit turn around, come back, and move forward, is the people here being so passionate, doing things. Don't work in a silo. Create those partnerships with those in your community and realize that your key assets are the people in what they're creating.
Today's show is brought to you by a great partner of ours named Connect Travel. Connect Travel puts on the premier trade shows and conventions in the destination marketing industry. Coming up in February is the Marketing Leadership Summit, and that's February 19th through the 21st in Kissimmee, Florida. We're really excited about that event. It has a unique format that we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. So go to connecttravel.com if you want more information. We hope to see you there. Okay, welcome again, everybody, to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker, and excited to be with you today. We've got a great show for you, but before we dive in, I just want to remind everybody, if you're enjoying the show, please go on and leave us a rating or a review. That really helps us to be found more and more, and to have more and more destination marketers listen and benefit from the content here on the show. We've got a great guest for you today. His name is Chris Pokorski, and Chris is from Detroit, Michigan. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Adam. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We've got kind of this icebreaker set of questions that we ask every guest that comes on, and we'll start there with you. What is your dream destination? If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, wow. I think that would be Tuscany, with its Renaissance cities, quaint villages, terrace vineyards, not to mention, the truffles, the wines, the cheeses. All made the traditional way. So I think it would be Tuscany.
Okay. I got to say, Chris, Italy in general has been the most popular dream destination that we've had here on the show so far. So you're in good company with a lot of other people that want to go to Italy. So great choice. Have you been to Europe?
I have not. Where my favorite place to travel, I've been to London, England. And I'd like to go back. Being from Detroit, naturally, I have an appreciation for music. Would like to visit, Brighton, Liverpool, London, Manchester, to see firsthand, the cities that inspired the Beatles, Rolling Stones, The Who, Jam, Smiths, and on. So I have not been to Europe, but would like to make it back over the pond.
Okay. I'm starting to hear some musical undertones here. You're a music guy, aren't you?
Most definitely.
Great. Well, maybe we'll ask you more about that as time goes on. I might ask you about the music scene in Detroit.
Oh, definitely.
Well, tell me a little bit about you, Chris. Tell me about your background and kind of what led you to your role today.
Well, I actually went to school at Northern Michigan University in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and received a degree in mass communications. Upon graduation, I worked for a few radio stations here in Detroit as a sales promotions coordinator. Even got an opportunity to work with Danny Bonaducci at one of the stations. However, as a result of deregulation, a lot of the stations were being bought and sold, formats changing. So I left to go to the agency side for more stability, working on automotive advertising of all things.
I got to stop you there, Chris. It's so funny. So Kyle, our producer here, is just sitting here nodding his head because he started his career in radio and then moved over to the ad agency side. So far, we don't know if it's Kyle's life or your life that you're describing here so far.
I think it's anyone's life and that's working on radio.
That's great. Okay, sorry, keep going.
So, after all, it's Detroit, so you have to work in automotive. I've managed the creative, both regionally and nationally for Oldsmobile, Buick, GM Corporate, then later provided advertising intelligence to Chrysler, did some mystery shops for Continental Tire, and even did some web development for Ford, and at the time Lincoln Mercury on their dealer websites.
Wow!
So it's exciting. I enjoyed my time, working on the agency side.
Yeah, Chris, I started my career actually in automotive advertising at there was two different agencies where I spent time in automotive advertising, and we did it at the dealership level, and I've always wondered what it would have been like to work at the brand level, like you said, for Oldsmobile and Buick, and because at the dealership level, it was very grueling, and it was, I mean, the deadlines were constant, and you start at zero every month, and they don't remember the good things that you did the month before, and so it was somewhat of a difficult thing for us. What was it like working at the brand level for some of these dealerships or for some of these manufacturers?
It was great. However, you still had to get things approved through the various legal staffs, and a lot of times, they'd question the simplest things, like making sure that somebody had a seatbelt on in an image. And it's like, well, the car's not moving; they're sitting in the car. And they had to have the seatbelt on. So, attention to detail. I did like the retail side with the dealer advertising. I understand what you say about everything changing every 30, 60 days with incentives.
Yeah.
Reset. When I was with Oldsmobile, we launched the 000 incentive, so zero interest, zero down payment.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Good stuff.
definitely good times.
Yeah. Yep. So you moved on. You were in the agency world. You moved on out of kind of the automotive industry and the advertising for it. Where'd you go from there?
Well, our contract expired. I was working with a small agency, and our contract expired. So looking through the newspaper, and this would have been, automotive industry started slowing down in early 2008, and looked in the Detroit news, and there was an ad for an advertising manager with the Detroit Metro Convention and Visitors Bureau, and knew nothing about the Detroit Metro Convention and Visitors Bureau, what they did, and at the time they had a marketing vehicle, a literal marketing vehicle, a 32 Ford, that they used to promote the region's rich automotive and labor history. They used it to promote the various events, car cruises, shows, races that all take place throughout the summer months here in Detroit. So I was the perfect fit with my advertising and automotive background. So just by chance, I ended up in the tourism and hospitality industry.
I love hearing people's stories of how they got into the tourism industry because, it feels like very few people understand when they graduate from college that this industry even has the opportunity that it has. And so, you kind of stumble into it along the way, and just like you saw that ad and it was your background was the perfect fit. That's just such a great example of people finding their way to the industry. But once you get in, you don't want to get out, right?
Exactly. Matter of fact, I gave a presentation Tuesday to a class of ninth grade students in a school about 32 miles north of Detroit. And at this ninth grade academy, they required the kids to identify a career path. They give them about 40 trading cards with careers. And if you look on the back, it's got what skill sets are required, what courses they have to take, and what degrees are required as well. And they have to divide the stack of 40 cards in half to 20, and then from there narrow it down to 10 potential career opportunities. And then throughout the course of the year, they invite people like myself to come in and talk about the industry. So it's a great opportunity to go in and talk about hospitality as an industry to these kids that may not have thought of it, that they could be interested in finance and work in the hospitality industry and looking at ADR for a hotel, or they could be an artist and work for one of the agencies supporting the hotels or our convention bureau in developing content, web content, or if they're leaning more towards trades, culinary arts, and there's opportunities there within our industry.
Yeah, I bet once you started explaining the industry a little bit, you had a lot of excited students by the end of it, didn't you?
Definitely. It was, kids coming up asking about, oh, I'm interested in marketing and asking for advice. And they said, wow, we drive by these hotels on a daily basis. We don't realize people are staying there, but not realizing it's a job opportunity for them.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Well, tell me how long ago that was that you accepted the position as the advertising manager there at the Detroit CVB.
Yeah, that was back in 2008 when I started with the bureau. about mid-year, the June timeframe. So
Okay.
just before the automotives sort of had a refocus, and it was tough at that time.
Yeah, I bet. I was going to say, okay, 12 years in, tell me what it's been like to market Detroit.
Well, it's great. It's a region where I was born and raised, and I'm passionate about all things Detroit, much like all Detroiters. You can run into a Detroiter that's residing in California, and they're still passionate about their hometown. Um, Again, when I first joined the bureau, the automotives, were sort of trying to refocus their efforts. Um, we had just opened 3 Vegas-style casinos here in Detroit, all of which had new hotels. The new Westin Book Cadillac Hotel opened that year. However, there wasn't much in the way of a leisure product. The only thing really for a leisure traveler at the time was our sports teams and legendary American Coney Island hot dogs. So our ad campaign that we had at the time was a little self-deprecating. It's award-winning. It featured some of the groups that had chosen Detroit for their conference. One such example was Mensa. In the headline read, "Who's the genius that selected Detroit?" That was for PRSA. Detroit finally gets good PR. And what we did in the body copy of those ads was, tout our convention center and the 3 Vegas style casinos that we had.
Interesting stuff. I loved some of the copy that you included there. It reminds me, we had an episode a couple months ago with it was the Nebraska Convention and Visitors Bureau, the state. And, they had a little bit of self-deprecation. They said, Nebraska, it's not for everyone, was the headline of their campaign. And they did a lot of fun plays on that statement. And, self-deprecation, when done correctly, right, can be really, really effective. And it sounds like it was for you guys.
Yes. However, we were only targeting the meetings and conventions industry, and we didn't have that leisure product. So as I alluded to, the automotive industry was having some hard times in 2009. We lost some population, but there were still people here, going to work every day, getting the job done, despite the headlines and Time and Dateline.
Let's talk about Detroit at that time, because I think the outside perception of Detroit is this city has been depleted, right? And so working through that to when your product has been perceived that way, how do you work through bringing back the positive message of Detroit?
Yeah, well, we were fortunate enough. National Geographic had some writers living in our city in 2010, 11, and they wrote a piece on Detroit for their 2012 March, April issue that focused on the people that remained here and all the positive things that were taking place. For example, we have this group called the Lawnmower Brigade. This is a group of people that use their own equipment. They cleared vacant lots and playgrounds just so kids would have a safe place to play. And this is at a time when the city didn't have the resources.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that's Detroit. We help a neighbor out. So National Geographic posed a question in that same article. Could Detroit be America's next comeback city? And we heard this echoed in other publications like Popular Mechanics and Forbes. And we had a good CEO. We have a great CEO, Larry Alexander. And he was recently appointed to a regional authority overseeing the renovations of our convention center. And we were going to invest $279 million into this renovation. So we thought, what a great time to retain an agency, because at the end of 2009, I released our agency, brought everything in-house. We were also awarded the Super Bowl of Conventions, ASAE's annual conference in 2015. Along with the International Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous that we'll be hosting here in 2020.
Wow.
So at that time, we retained a new agency after putting out an RFP to about 27 agencies, and basically retained one agency that happens to be the agency of record for the Tigers, Red Wings, Broadway in Detroit, Michigan Lottery, the Wilbur Dream Cruise. So they really understood the heart of Detroit, cars, culture, gaming, music, and sports. So we needed an agency for us. And we basically gave them the mission of, hey, we've got this great line, America's Great Comeback City. How do you propose, us rolling it out? And they suggested, let's get locals involved. Let locals tell the story. And so it helps resonate and helps, change the perception of Detroit, but also has a feel good for our local community. So that's what we did. We produced ads that featured locals and expatriates who explained why Detroit is a great place to either visit, host a meeting, or why they brought a meeting back to Detroit. We've continued to evolve that campaign over a number of years, from its initial launch in 2012 through 17. As the city came back, there were more new developments, new restaurants, boutique hotels being built. So it was something new around every corner, and we evolved the ad campaign under America's Great Comeback City to reflect those changes in our city.
Chris, what I love about that campaign is if there's one thing America loves is it's an underdog. It's a comeback story. I mean, look at the fanfare from the most recent Tiger Woods comeback, right? When he won the Masters last year. It's in the blood of Americans to want the underdog to win. And you guys positioned yourself, even though you had the biggest manufacturing organizations in the country, you were able to still position yourself as the underdog and leverage that to build your leisure brand so much better than you had in the past. And I just love that you guys capitalized on a very difficult situation.
And again, it wasn't something that was fluff that we produced. It was something that was being said. It happened organically, through the publications. And it was just getting ourselves to believe it. Hey, things are changing. And, come back, take a look. You see for yourself. Don't believe what you're reading out there in the press. That's old news. There's still people here getting things done that are very passionate. And it basically became infectious.
I love it. Tell me a little bit of the effects of that campaign on Detroit. What were the results that you saw? How did it affect stakeholders? How did it affect visitors? Give me kind of what you saw as the effect of that campaign.
Well, again, I think the morality of the people, working here in the city that were exposed to the campaign felt better about themselves and the job they were doing. We saw increased hotel occupancy, average daily room rates steadily over the years the campaigns run. And we, in addition, have won awards for that campaign, Magellan, Effie, so it was well recognized.
Great stuff. And since then, you've recently pivoted, right, to the It's Go Time campaign.
Yeah, exactly. We figured it was time to stop looking back. Now with Detroit in full stride, it was time to start focusing on the future. Cobo Center completed its $279 million renovation in 2015. Absolutely beautiful facility. Now just got renamed last year. We have one of the most lucrative sponsorships of a facility in the United States. We now have the TCF Center. So that is a beautiful space. We've got a ballroom with over 40,000 square feet, an atrium that overlooks the Detroit River and Canada to the south of us, another 30,000 square feet. So there's close to 200,000 square feet of meeting space and over 723,000 square feet of exhibit space in that facility. And that was basically the anchor for us to move forward. And now we're seeing, boutique hotels open all around Detroit. We've got the Foundation, which was an old firehouse. It was actually used for the movie Real Steel. Is Talgert's Boxing Gym, and now that is a beautiful award-winning boutique hotel directly across from our convention center.
I mentioned earlier that today's show is brought to you by Connect Travel. Their Marketing Leadership Summit is coming up in February. I had the opportunity to go last year, and it was such an interesting format. It's actually a format that allows you as a destination to sit down with suppliers for a few minutes, a short period of time, to see if you want to continue the conversation. It allowed me to really meet with several people and get to know their needs quickly and build a quick relationship so that we could see if we wanted to continue the conversation. If you're looking for new technologies, new products, new partners, it's a great way to have a quick introduction without taking too much of your time. I hope to see you there February 19th through the 21st in Kissimmee, Florida, and President Obama will be speaking this year. So we're excited for that event, and we'll see you there. Wow. Okay, so conventions, that's one of the reasons you're really winning with conventions right now, is because you've worked so hard on infrastructure in Detroit.
Yes, definitely. We just opened up a new sports arena, a Little Caesars arena, which is the home to the Red Wings and Pistons. It sits in the middle of a 54 city block district area for mixed-use development. Google has offices there. And what we're seeing is, now with that space being developed, we're getting more retail along our main artery, Woodward Avenue. So we've got the likes of Nike, Under Armour, Lululemon, H&M just opened up a two-story retail store there last fall. It's really exciting to see all the new development, not only hotels and restaurants, but also retail moving back to Detroit when they're saying retail is going away.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. Tell me how it's affected kind of the leisure traveler, because I know that one of the things that you were really trying to bring back with your America's Great Comeback City. Tell me what you've seen with volume of leisure travelers over the last several years.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, when I first started with the Bureau, our main focus was conventions, because we knew we could direct their experience, direct them to the Henry Ford, the Detroit Institute of Arts, these great partners of ours, and they'd have a positive experience. But we were missing opportunities because we did not have the restaurants and the other leisure activities for those meeting attendees. But now what we find is that a shift in our advertising efforts. We're now focused more on the leisure traveler because there is so much to do. Tours along the waterfront. We've got a great partnership in the Riverfront Conservancy. There was a 5-mile bike path all along the Detroit River. We were founded by the French, and it was always a working waterfront, and that was in our mindset. And it took us all these years to realize, boy, we've got this great asset that would appeal to leisure travelers with an active lifestyle. And that path actually connects through the DeQuinder Cut to our Eastern Market, which is one of the oldest working markets in the country. So you go there, you ride your bike along the riverfront, come up to Eastern Market on the weekend, and you can shop local. Not only market items, but there's people selling crafts and a record album. It's amazing.
Wow. Sounds like a great experience for a leisure traveler. Tell me a little bit about, you and I, when we had our intro call prior to you coming on the show, you talked about how you use digital marketing. You used it to establish your personas. And I want to talk about that process, because I think you've done something there that a lot of people are really afraid to do. A lot of people want to have everything perfect before they spend their marketing dollars, and are a little bit afraid to use the results of their marketing dollars to hone in things like personas. I love that you went in and said, we're gonna do our digital marketing and use the data that we get back to help establish those personas. Do you want to talk about that process for me a little bit?
It actually started as far back as about 2016, 17. We started transitioning a lot of our print media from the print publications, and more of a focus on the leisure audience, with something new happening around every corner, where we could have vibrant images in our ads. We could see what open rates were. We could see, what ads were driving traffic to our websites. And then it gave us more flexibility to adjust those messages than if you ran a print ad in a publication.
Right.
And with that, more people coming to our website. We looked at those analytics. We also have great partners in Expedia, TripAdvisor, Adara, Arrivalist, and we're able to get data from them to better understand, who those visitors were, what their interests were. I mentioned, big sports town. So that was one of the personas that we saw is people were coming here from around the state to watch our own teams play, the Tigers, Red Wings, Pistons, Lions. But we were also seeing visitors from other cities around the Great Lakes traveling to Detroit to see their teams play. A lot of those teams, you can't get tickets in their cities. So Detroit's an easy, 3 to 4 hour trip. So basically connecting with those individuals and telling about all the things they can and do experience here in our region while they're attending a game.
That's really interesting. I'm sure when you started, you had kind of a hypothesis of who your visitors were, right? And then after you ran your digital marketing, was there any big surprises that came out of the results that led to changes in your persona hypothesis?
Yeah, we knew that people would come back, friends and family would come back for weddings and stuff. But that was one group that surprised us of how large that is. The expats, coming back to see friends and family. We also found a couple other personas, the vibe seekers, those that want to come and have a unique experience. They want to have, dinner at the chef's table. Then we've got the trendy travelers that, don't have to have that unique experience, but want to be in the know, and they want to know about the newest restaurants that are opening up. And so there was a lot of that played into what was happening and transpiring here in Detroit with the new restaurants, new art exhibits. I mentioned Eastern Market. There's an event every September where they bring in 50 artists, 25 local, 25 from around the world. And there's 150 murals. And so every September we get another 50 murals in the market. So those type of experiences we can share digitally with these personas.
Tell me about this process of getting these 50 murals every year, because I think murals, especially with today's shareability and social media culture, I think murals have become much more important than they ever were in the past in a destination. What led to you guys rolling those out, and what's your strategy for where to put the murals, what to put on the murals, and all of that?
Well, it's not something that we do at the Convention Bureau. There's the Eastern Market group and Run Detroit that actually go out and seek the artists that they bring in. But Detroit's always been a very creative city, very innovative city. We've always had a lot of art. You think of Motown. Motown started here in Detroit.
Yeah.
The result of people working in that factory and that driving beat of the stamping plants and just that rhythm. Same thing with our public art. It's just a reflection of people and their work environment, their home environment coming together. So, it was great foresight by the folks that run Eastern Market to take these old ice houses and spruce them up, with public art.
Yeah, even better when the infrastructure is being built and you don't have to be responsible for driving all of it, right? Your product's getting better organically, which I think is really good. When you were rolling out these personas that you've created to your stakeholders, was there any pushback, or was everybody kind of on board with the results that you were seeing?
No, not really. It was natural because we had done a study back in 2007 before I joined the Bureau, identifying the key attributes that people associate with Detroit. So there was some groundwork done previously, and through digital confirmation, it basically amplifies those pillars. Sports, the culture, music, and it's how do we connect with those individuals. And now with all the data that's available, it makes it much easier to deliver the appropriate content and experiences.
Absolutely. I love that strategy because we have a hypothesis, or we're starting with a persona, and then we're going to use the data that comes back to verify that either we were correct or we need to pivot. And no wonder everybody's on board. It's data driven, right? So I think that's great.
And even the ads that we share, we're looking at those. We're doing A/B testing, and okay, this image isn't resonating. This one's getting more clicks. So we're constantly evaluating our messaging that we're pushing out there.
Perfect. One other thing that you told me about when we had our intro call is how good your relationship is with the state of Michigan, or Travel Michigan, and their Pure Michigan campaign. Tell me about the dynamic of that relationship and the support that you receive from them.
Yeah, our relationship with Travel Michigan is really the result of great leadership, again, by our CEO, Larry Alexander, and the Vice President of Travel Michigan, Dave Lorenz. Travel Michigan's Pure Michigan campaign helps us to extend our message beyond the markets that we're traditionally in. So, and that's both domestically and internationally. Domestically, we tend to focus on the 3 to 5 hour drive radius, but Pure Michigan has national campaigns that we're able to tie in with, and again, extend our message.
Do they have a cooperative program or a matching program where, you can apply for funds and they match as you try to attract more visitors, either from in-state or out of state?
They do. So they match us dollar for dollar. And then they also have additional partnerships. They partner with Great Lakes USA and Brain USA. So again, it's helping us stretch our dollar further through the initiatives that they're undertaking.
That's great. Any advice that you would have for a destination that might be having a difficult time understanding how to work better with their state DMO?
Again, sit down, find out who that director is, sit down with them, explain some of the challenges that you're facing, and see, maybe they do offer matching dollars. Find out where they're advertising. It might overlap with the markets that you're trying to reach. Definitely have your information in hand of what you're doing and your messaging. And, there's a lot of opportunity, especially with Brain USA. We, again, recently partnered with them on the Hear the Music campaign through the efforts of the state, highlighting our great music history. And that would have only been available to us, by working with our state.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, Brand USA is a powerful tool when used correctly. We have access to that as well here in the Utah market.
Yeah. And another thing that the state does for us is they have representation in the UK, Germany, and China. And again, we couldn't afford to pay on our own to have representation in those countries. A lot of the way those countries were selected is, we have the automotive industry, so we're already seeing a lot of travel from the UK, Germany, and China as a result of that. So it only makes sense to hopefully get those travelers to become leisure travelers as well.
Totally makes sense. Yep. Being able to, international, it's so funny because I've had clients say, should we be doing marketing in China? And it's like, well, we could, right? But that is a very expensive undertaking. So the fact that, Brand USA and the state CVB in a lot of cases has the ability to get that reach that you couldn't afford to do on your own. So I love that you're leveraging that internationally.
In international, in leveraging the knowledge that Brain USA has on these markets.
Yes, exactly. You'd have to reinvent the wheel entirely, right, to build an entire plan for these countries that they already have broken into and figured out.
Correct.
Well, tell me this, Chris. We've talked about a lot today. In fact, a pretty wide breadth of topics. 2 questions would be, 1, what should everybody's takeaway be today from this discussion? And 2, if there's anything I haven't asked you that our listenership would benefit from hearing.
Well, let me start with the second. One thing I think would benefit, we talked about partnerships with the state, with Brain USA, with your local community, because there's people out there doing great things that you don't have to recreate the wheel. But I'd also say, we were fortunate that we've got one of the best airports in North America in the Wayne County Airport Authority. They have over 1,100 flights per day. With those, over 140 are nonstop from 4 continents. So that's another great resource to work with to promote your destination. How are visitors getting to you? And that's in a lot of cases, that's their first experience with your destination. And we know if a visitor doesn't have a pleasant experience from the get-go, then there's no getting them back. So I advise understand how your visitors are getting there. If it is through an airport, work closely with that partner to make sure that you enhance that experience.
I think that's a great point. Great point. Sometimes if you have a bad experience, and I've had this at a couple of airports, I won't call them out here on the show, but at a couple of airports, you just start out in a bad mood because the airport experience is so poor. And so, yeah, I love that you're focused on everything from arrival all the way through the customer experience.
Yeah, and again, getting back to your initial question is, what is the main takeaway is, don't overlook your greatest resource. And that's the people. When it comes down to it, people make your destination. And that's what's really helped Detroit turn around, come back, and move forward, is the people here being so passionate, doing things. Don't work in a silo. Create those partnerships with those in your community, like our folks at Eastern Market that are creating the murals, various music events that take place, and realize that your key assets are the people in what they're creating.
Such a critical point. I mean, you think back to all the amazing trips that you've been on, whether a staycation or a vacation or whatever. The interactions with people is the difference between a good vacation and a great vacation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff, Chris. Well, thanks for coming on today. I sure appreciate you taking the time.
Adam, thank you for having me. It's been very enjoyable anytime. We invite you and your listeners to come and experience Detroit for themselves.
It's on the list. I think we need to come see America's great comeback city.
It's go time.
That's right. It's go time now. Well, everybody, this has been another wonderful episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. Thanks to Chris Pokorski for sharing his experience and knowledge with us today. We have a couple things that we just want to remind everybody. We've got a LinkedIn group called Destination Marketers that if you want to actually get access to some of the assets that are discussed here on the show, you can see it on the Destination Marketers LinkedIn page. We're always posting either reports or campaigns or whatever it is that's discussed on the show in that channel. And so please make sure that you request to join that group. We'll make sure you're in the tourism industry and give you access to all of that great material. So other than that, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week.